At this point, I've noticed that every single time I try to learn a new style from a new master, I get stuck. I have no idea what to do. But recently, I got blocked for good. This illustration you see the time lapse in the background, it took me like one whole month, or maybe 2 months. I don't even know anymore. So much time has passed already. From this experience, I learned a very important lesson. Attempting to assimilate a new style, trying to study a new master, it is starting from scratch. For quite some time, I've been doing copy studies, and at some point, I figure out how to replicate the result. Mostly. But every single time, it is a nearly insurmountable struggle. I always thought that it was due to my lack of understanding of fundamentals. But now I realize that it's not. It happens that trying out a new process is basically going back to the starting line and learning it all over again. Maybe gaining just a few meters of advantage in a whole marathon. If on one side, experimenting with different techniques, styles, and processes is fundamental to find out what path you want to walk and what it is that you like, on the other hand, to keep switching it, that's running in circles. That is the equivalent of constantly resetting the game at the end of stage 1. In my mind, all of these studies of great artists like Krenz Kochard, Kang Liu, Mogun, and so on, I thought that I was stacking up skills so I can reuse them later. And well, I sort of was. But I was also kind of sabotaging myself. And that showed up most clearly when I tried to create this illustration on my own. I saw the Brazilian Miku trend and decided to tag in for fun. I saw it as an opportunity to apply my previous studies of food rendering in anime aesthetics. I wanted to create one of those illustrations Japanese artists usually do, with lots of local food, but replacing the classic Japanese meal with known Brazilian dishes instead. I thought this could be at the same time an interesting concept and a chance to apply what I've learned. I even borrowed some inspiration from close friends. I watched what they usually order when we hang out and put in the canvas some things they love. And with all of that, I could not be more wrong. I failed miserably. Actually, I've never been stuck in a single painting for such a long time ever. I had to stop and do supporting studies in the middle of the process. Because it was taking so long running in circles, it would be more efficient to halt the painting process and go practice in parallel. Then go back to execute the task again. The one most time-consuming brick wall was definitely composition. I joke you not, I spent weeks juggling around colors, trying to balance things and achieve a pleasing overall picture. Maybe that could have been avoided with better thumbnails? Maybe not. Maybe I lacked better composition skills? I don't know, but one thing is certain. Eventually, I gave up trying to get the colors correctly, stopped the illustration altogether, opened a new file, and started investigating the color compositions of several paintings I aimed for. I didn't care about edges or details, and not so much about textures either. All I wanted to understand was the color choices and how they were disposed around the canvas. It's funny how you can easily end up honing some skill like zooming in and rendering details perfectly, but still remain unable to plan a scene. If you stop to think about it, composition skills are more related to photography. Some people think that rendering or being physically accurate is everything, but that doesn't make sense at all. For instance, Blender is a 3D renderer, and it uses math to calculate the light and everything. So technically speaking, It always renders the light perfectly accurate. But not every scene rendered in Blender looks good. On the contrary, it is easier to make a bad scene in Blender than doing a good one. The same applies for photography. You could purchase the best camera in the world, and it would still not prevent you from shooting bad photos. The camera is capturing reality itself, and there is nothing more physically accurate than reality. But still, the picture looks bad. Why is that? So what it is that makes a picture look good? It is composition. It is the abstract planning of the scene, the setup of colors, shapes, motion lines, and such. And composition is a skill itself we must practice separately. That said, when stuck, we often need to take some time, move away from that project, and go search for the answers somewhere else. Some professionals manage to work around that by juggling multiple projects at the same time. But at least to me, I cannot do that. I am not at that level yet. So all that remains is to go research, look for other subjects, watch some classes, and try to find answers somewhere else. This time, I even went to an old channel I like and used to watch. It hasn't uploaded videos in years, but I went there and rewatched some tutorials. It is not even the same style, but that adds to the idea of moving away from the project you're trying to solve. Sometimes the answer is far away and you gotta go there and grab it. It is important to keep in mind that the bigger an illustration is, the complexity and working time skyrocket, and that logic does not apply only to the drawing and perspective, but to the colors in a painting too. Painting a bust or an icon is way easier than painting a whole scene. The more elements in the scene, the more you need to balance colors around, and the more complicated it becomes to pick colors in context. Each color you touch affects all of the other colors in a picture. The more local colors you add, and further away from a monochromatic color scheme, the harder it gets to make those colors look like they belong to the same context. Especially if you are trying to pinpoint colors manually, directly from the color picker. Some pros simply acknowledge how hard it is to pick good colors by hand, and just go for the way of the layer blending modes: multiply, linear dodge, overlay. Though that's an option, it is harder to control the final result. Do not be fooled by the idea that if you can render a portrait in detail, then you can do the same for a splash art. Depending on what you're trying to do, it is a completely different level of difficulty. You may be underestimating a task and possibly blaming yourself. This self-punishing behavior could be harmful to you and undermine your motivation to continue. Particularly, I would suggest you acknowledge the magnitude of the project you're trying to achieve and take your time. Doesn't matter if you consider yourself a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. You should hardly expect to complete a big project without taking breaks in between to study specific topics in order to solve the specific issues in your project. Needless to say, I completely missed the trend, but I think it was worth it. I have learned a lot from this, and as time passes, we only get better, faster, stronger. Mogun, one of the artists I quoted here before, is capable of finishing an illustration like that in one single day. That is the guy that created the 100-day challenge and finished one picture like that per day for 100 days. In order to achieve that level of speed, one must hone one process and one only. It will not happen overnight, and it will also not happen after 10 or 20 paintings. If you have ever watched the anime My Hero Academia, there is a scene where the younger generation asks the currently #1 hero, Endeavor, the following question: How can we master such a difficult technique if we are barely capable of maintaining it even when we stay totally focused? And Endeavor's answer goes like, just go for it, step by step, one at a time, and do it again and again and again, and keep pushing it until it becomes mechanical, until you cannot feel it anymore. And that is precisely how you master new things. You repeat it until it becomes muscle memory, until you reach the point that you don't even need to think about it anymore. It just flows naturally. The fast is simply the result of doing the slow correctly a lot of times. Well, that was my message to you today. If you want me to do more videos, maybe tutorial videos too, please leave a message in the comment section. If you like this video, push the like button and share with your friends. Thank you very much for watching this video until the end, and good luck on your journey.